halls of West Virginia resound with the sound of Golden Blue football.
Almost heaven, West Virginia.
Now let's bring on the Mountaineers. Goes around about the 50 to 10 to 5. A touchdown, West Virginia. He did it.
He did it. Patrick White. Touchdown, Tay Von Austin.
But Don Nehlen's Mountaineers enjoy walking in where angels fear to tread.
I think you think that these guys are going to fall over dead for you. Well, I got news for you. They're going to punch you right in the mouth. It's Mountaineer pride!
Nothing cheap, nothing dirty, but West Virginia football. West Virginia football.
We've no doubt tonight they shouldn't have played the old Golden Blue. Not this night!
They've done it. They've done it. A perfect season. And the Mountaineers, for the first time in history, undefeated and untied.
Don Nehlen and his Mountaineers, for the second time, have finished a regular season with an unblemished mark.
Ain't no stopping the Golden Blue.
It is a great night to be a Mountaineer wherever you may be.
What's going on, Mountaineer Nation? Welcome back into another live stream here on the Country Roads webcast channel. March 19th edition and basketball-centric episode this time because obviously this will be something that's ongoing. We'll be trying to cover this coaching search now as it progresses, having lost Darian DeVries as we talked about on our podcast episode, which we released late last night. Hopefully you guys had a chance to check that out, and I want to just try and keep you guys up to date on candidates that are still in the picture, candidates that have left the picture. So probably every day or every other day until this thing wraps up, we'll probably try and do a live stream and chat with you guys a little bit about this. Moving forward, I expect this to wrap up rather quickly. Ren Baker had a press conference today and kind of alluded to that as well, trying to get this done as fast as possible. You know, be quick, but don't hurry is always his go-to say in there. But really, you know, had some nice information from his press conference. Of course, one of the main things being the buyout that we previously discussed. It is over $6 billion, and he says to his knowledge it's one of the largest, if not the largest, that he's known of for a basketball coach. And one of those reasons being because of the time that Darian DeVries is leaving, of course, prior to whatever date it was in April. That means it has to include some the moving costs, a bunch of stuff that West Virginia covered up front when they hired Darian DeVries. So Indiana paying for that. So over $6 million they're going to pay WVU, which should help us in multiple ways. But we got a bunch of names to go through here, a couple that are off the board that we were kind of hoping for, and we talked about in our most recent podcast episode, so we'll kind of update that list and such. But before we do, I just want to take a second and say thank you guys for tuning into this one live, whether you're watching on Facebook, Twitch, or YouTube. If you're watching on Facebook or Twitch, do want to encourage you to come over to the YouTube channel where you can subscribe and get access to our podcast episodes, pre-recorded videos, and become a channel member for bonus content as well. If you are watching live on YouTube or on the playback, be sure you hit that thumbs up button. Helps us a ton with the algorithm. Throw your thoughts in the comments. If you don't got a chance to, throw them in here in the live chat. And be sure you're subscribed to the channel so you can stay up to date on this WVU basketball coaching search and, of course, everything that's going on throughout the WVU football offseason as well. So before we get into talking about the coaching stuff specifically, I do want to pull this up because this will also be something I'll continue to update you guys on throughout the offseason, because yet again, seems like it will be another roster overhaul for the Mountaineers. And thus far, this is what we have. Of course, Tucker's going to follow Darren to Indiana. Jonathan Powell has hit the portal. So those are the two that we have thus far that have transferred out. We know we had several other players that are out of eligibility. I think the only returners would be Harris Elizovich, Offrey Neve, KJ Tenner, Amani Hansberry, and Buck Harris. Granted, that is assuming all those guys do choose to stay. To this point, it looks like they're sticking around thus far. We'll see if that remains to be the case. And then, of course, last night in the podcast, we talked about West Virginia lost the commitment of Kelvin O'Day, which we kind of thought they would, start to lose some of these that Darian DeVries had recruited. Still got our fingers crossed we're able to keep Braden Hawthorne because West Virginia has also lost Trent McLean. Let me pull that one up as well, which is another one that we were excited about. We did have 3 top 100 recruits in the class, down to only 1 now, but that was kind of to be expected after everything that happened there with DeVries leaving. Trent McLean, a 4-star recruit, 2025 class, son of UCLA legend Don McLean, will request his release from his national letter of intent from West Virginia. He told 247. So McLean out, Odie out. West Virginia still has Hawthorne in the fold for now, though, at least. So at least you have one positive coming out of that. So those are the one things that I want to touch on before we get into more talking about the coaching specifics. But something else that came out today that I just wanted to address, kind of get off my chest here at the beginning before we talk specific candidates, is, it's one of those things, like, I know we wish Darian DeVries the best or whatever, wish him well in the future, all that stuff. But, man, just some of the stuff that's come out about this, I don't know how else to put it, but it was just a cowardly way. He went about this like a coward. Straight up, man. That's the only way I know how to say it. I know people want to say snake in the grass, coward, call it whatever you want. But the fact that we've now learned today that he didn't tell any of the players, he didn't tell any of the assistant coaches. He just left like a thief in the middle of the night, and not a text, not a call, not a Zoom, not a letter by pigeon, nothing. I mean, just nothing. Absolutely. And that's, to me, that's just not the way that this should be handled. Say what you want about him taking the job or not, that's a whole nother argument. But I think it just, the way that you handle it, says a lot about character. And I think that one thing that we thought about Darian DeVries proves to not be true now in hindsight. And, maybe he works out better, at Indiana. Maybe he's not like that with them. But if I was an Indiana fan, I guess the best way to put it would be I would watch my back, right? Because he certainly sold us a bill of false goods for sure. And the way he left a sour taste in my mouth. And I'm sure a lot of Mountaineer nations as well, especially learning the things that we've learned now over the past 24 hours or so. And so I just had to get that off my chest a little bit because I feel like that deserves saying. For sure, a little rant here at the beginning, but I see some people rolling in here. Let me catch up on some comments really quick here in the chat, and then we'll talk about some of these candidates. I won't keep you guys too long. I got Texas and Xavier on here on the TV. Know you guys probably want to watch some of these play-in games here as we get set to kick off the tournament tomorrow officially with the round of 64, so I won't keep you guys too long so you guys can watch some of that, but do want to get to some of your all's comments here. Hey, Matt Dix is watching. I see you. What's going on, Matt? Good to see you, bro. Horns down always. Hey, that's right. That's right. Let's see. Hey, what's going on, Dad? Good to see you in here. Got my dad in the chat. Appreciate you. Hope we get someone good too, man. I hope we get someone good too. I think there's quite a few good candidates. We're going to name some of them here in a bit, and I'll talk about some of my favorites for sure. But I think that, if one thing is proven true, it's that we should trust Ren Baker in these scenarios. He's hired how many coaches now? A ton. And he's definitely had success hiring basketball coaches. I mean, you look, hired Grant McCaslin at North Texas, and now look what he's doing at Texas Tech. You look at Ben McCollum, who won natties at the D2 level. Now he's a hot commodity. They're coming now at Drake. And then, of course, what he just did hiring Darian DeVries. So I think Ren Baker, we're in good hands as far as that is concerned, at least. Channel member Trey Edwards. What's going on, Trey? Good to see you, man. Appreciate you always. He says, give me McCollum or Frazier. Not bad choices there at all. We'll touch a little bit on that. McCollum is definitely probably top of my list, number one, but I have a bad feeling about it, I guess you could say, because some of the reporting coming out from the Iowa side, which we'll talk about here momentarily for sure. Eric says, hopefully whoever we get, they may bring some players with them since that's the way it works now. Good point. Good point. That's also something to keep in mind is maybe somebody that can bring in a couple good players with them wouldn't be a bad thing. That worked out for us pretty good this year with, especially with Chester Frazier getting Amani Hansberry, Buck Harris. They're key parts of this team for sure. Trey Edwards says, I don't wish him well. I hope you don't win a game. I understand that, man. My feelings have changed a little bit. I don't want to speak ill will on anybody, but I definitely don't like the way that this was handled whatsoever, man, whatsoever. So I understand where you're coming from, 100%. 100%. Next, we'll get to McCollum. He's from Iowa, just like DeVries. Matt Dick says, Iowa's looking for a coach, and I got bad news. DeVries snubbed Iowa for Indiana, which is the most prestigious job in the Midwest. Indiana isn't on the table for McCollum, but Iowa is. You do the math. Exactly, Matt. That's hand in hand with what I'm going to address here in a second. Perfect segue. I'll pull that up in just a second and talk a little bit about Iowa's reporting there, because it does seem like there's a lot of smoke to McCollum going to Iowa, which, maybe Ren Baker does have an in there, having been the guy that hired him at Northwest Missouri State there, and they do have a relationship. So maybe if Ren Baker picks up the phone, he could lure him away and offer him a sweeter deal. I think West Virginia could offer more than Iowa, but as Matt mentioned there, he is from the Midwest. He is from Iowa like DeVries was, so maybe that would be his preference because of that, but it's hard to tell. I do really like Ben McCollum. I think he's a great coach, though. Eric says, seems to me it was a bitch move the way he did things. Sketchy. 100%. Exactly. Well put. That's exactly what it was. Exactly what it was. A little bit of a snake in the grass type scenario. Edward Batten said, am I watching any of the tournaments? I don't blame you. I think that there's plenty of Mountaineer fans that feel that way. I personally I can't do it, man. It's one of my favorite times of the year. Besides college football season, it's my very favorite sporting event. Look forward to filling brackets out every year, so I can't pass up that opportunity. Who knows how many more opportunities you're going to get to do it, so I can't pass it up myself, but I get it. I get why you'd want to boycott it, being a Mountaineer fan for sure. I understand that. As Leslie says the same, she's not giving her money to the NCAA by watching the tournament, focused on football, and can't wait for the fall. Hey, football is going to be a lot of fun as well. I can't wait either. I understand for sure. Eric said he's not worried about giving money and say trying to take money from DraftKings and FanDuel. Hey, there you go, Eric. Hope you hit some parlays, brother. Hope you hit some parlays. As Matt Dick said, I love sports. He'll watch every single game. Sorry, but because WVU got snubbed, I'm not going to hurt myself. I'm in the same camp as you, Matt. I'm not going to let it take away my enjoyment of the March Madness. As mad as I am about it, I still want to get some fun out of it, and enjoy it for sure. And also, I don't have to worry about picking WVU to go too far in the tournament. At least that's usually one of the things that I fall victim to is always being a little bit biased and picking them too far, and then I'll screw up my bracket that way. So, I'll screw up my bracket in some other way, but at least it won't be from picking the Mountaineers to go too far this year, I guess. But appreciate you guys that are there in chat here live with me. If you got any other questions, comments, throw them in there. I'll try and catch up on those again before we get done with the stream here. But let's talk a little bit about the coaching search here. Let's lead it off. Let's talk about the jobs that are also open right now, kind of so we know who West Virginia is kind of competing against, I guess, for, so to speak, for some of these candidates. So in D1, I'm really going to name the ones that will kind of be looking at maybe a similar candidate pool. And so, I'm not going to, some of these other jobs are open that are lower tier than West Virginia. But I think obviously the ones that we're kind of focused on, Minnesota in the Big Ten is open. South Florida is open. UNLV is open. Villanova and Virginia. So those are kind of the ones that are also, on a coaching search currently. So they're seeking out, coaches just as West Virginia is, and they may have some of the same names on their list. So as, these other jobs fill out, we'll be able to cross names off the list. As you saw in the thumbnail for this video, we, of course, can cross Will Wade off the list, as funny enough, despite the fact that they're getting ready to play a tournament game, tomorrow, I think, or Friday. I don't know if they play tomorrow or Friday. But, the coach of McNeese, they play Clemson in the first round, already announcing that he's going to NC State, prior to their game even, which I thought was different. Usually people wait till after they're eliminated, but hey, went ahead and let the cat out of the bag. So Will Wade won't be coming to West Virginia, which, does disappoint me a little bit. He was, top of my list, but I think there's a lot of good coaches still yet to pluck from. Will Wade's going to be a good coach, and NC State got a good one in him. But hey, on to the next for West Virginia. And let's talk about some of those candidates now as well. I'm going to pull up the hot board here from Rivals. We'll name some of theirs, which a lot of these names we discussed previously, but then after we go over a bunch of these names, I want to tell you guys some of my favorites, and you guys, share some of your favorites in chat if you want as well. Of course, Ben McCollum, top of the list for sure for me, I think, right now. Current Drake head coach. It would just be ironic for West Virginia to get the Drake head coach in back-to-back years. Drake fans would absolutely loathe us, I'm sure. But as Keenan Cummings here shares on Rival, McCollum is a name that was on the early stages of the hot board last season and finds his way back onto it a year later. The connection, of course, is with Ren Baker during his time at Northwest Missouri State, where McCollum took over the head coaching position there in 2009. And while he was there, 394 and 91, 5 National Coach of the Year awards there at the D2 level, and won 4 national championships. So, that's why a lot of people were like, man, this guy's a hell of a coach. But the one thing that people were holding against him last year in this cycle was, well, he hasn't done it at the Division I level. We need to see if he can do it at this level. And now he's taken over Drake, and I think he has more than proven that he can do it at this level. They are 30-3 this year, 17-3, and went, of course, won the Missouri Valley Conference and going to the NCAA tournament where they will play Clemson in the first round. So McCollum definitely a name on the list. But in regards to that, let me go ahead and share this now, because I don't want everyone to get their hopes up too high about McCollum, because sounds like there could be something in the works with Iowa. So this is from the Hawkeye Insider. Of course, this is behind a paywall, so I can't share it on the screen, but I can tell you what it says pretty much is that there's a lot of smoke with Aya and McCollum at this point. It says things are picking up quickly. Nothing is final, but there's a lot of smoke between the two parties. And the Hawkeye Insider there is the 247 website for 247 Sports website for Iowa, and that was the second update they put out on McCollum today. They had one earlier saying all eyes are focused on McCollum for the Iowa job, so he's definitely their top candidate, and they said there was mutual interest. They said to watch out for West Virginia, but there's still mutual interest between Iowa and McCollum. And then later today, in that second update I just read you, they said there's a lot of smoke, things picking up quickly, nothing final yet, but a lot of smoke. So it sounds like that is nearing close to maybe being at the finish line. Maybe they're waiting for Drake to play their tournament game and see. But I think, right now, if I was a betting man, I'd say it seems like McCollum may end up at Iowa, unfortunately. And, that's another one to cross off the list, which is unfortunate because those were kind of my top two, Will Wade and Ben McCollum. But I think there's still a lot of other good names here on the list still yet. So we'll talk about some of those now. Let's go back to the hot board here on Rivals. And another name there, of course, Jared Calhoun, one that's going to be brought up and has been brought up a lot due to his ties already to West Virginia, having been an assistant with the Mountaineers, and then, of course, was at Fairmont State after that. I believe he either proceeded or followed up Joe Mazzulla. I can't remember which one came first there. And then, of course, since then has came here to Division I at Utah State and has them in the NCAA tournament as well. Of course, was with Bob Huggins from 2007 to 2012, 5 years at Fairmont State as the head coach, then was at Youngstown State. He was 118 and 106 during his time there, and then went to Utah State this past season and led him to 26 wins, 26-7, and is in the NCAA tournament, and of course has ties to the Mountain State, so he's a name that's going to be brought up in this cycle. Then you have Nico Medved, which I've heard, and I don't know how far along it is, but Minnesota, I think, has some interest in Nico Medved from what I've read as well. So keep an eye on that. But Nico Medved, I know his wife is a Morgantown native or a graduate of WVU, one of the two. I believe that was the connection that was brought up last year when Nico Medved's name came up. He was an assistant for 16 years at various stops before he got his first coaching role at Furman in 2013. Won 23 games there in his final year before spending a season at Drake. Then he went to Colorado State, where he's been for the past 7 seasons that include 3 trips to the NCAA tournament, and we're in this past year, and they're in again. He's a Minnesota native, has won 62% of his games atop the Rams basketball program. He's a respected talent developer and is a name that will certainly receive consideration after being in the mix last year, but I think that this right here is something to be worried about, because as we just talked about when we pulled up that list of other open jobs, Minnesota is one that's open, so you've got to think, being a Minnesota native, he may be in the running there also. But Nico Medved, another name. And then, of course, Chester Frazier is one that I actually do like. I know some people want to knock on it because of no head coaching experience, but, man, he's really done a great job everywhere he's been. He's proven to be a fantastic recruiter. He already has a great relationship with players on this team, so you would probably keep the roster you have intact. And then he's also shown the great ability to be able to go and get even, some more really good players. So not only would you keep your roster intact, you'd have a good recruiter that could go, to hit the portal hard and get you some good players, but also that would probably allow you to at least keep Braden Hawthorne, and who knows, maybe you'd be able to get Odie or McLean back in the fold too as well. It wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility if you keep Chester Frazier and promote him to head coach, which I think that he is on the path to be a head coach sooner or later. Will his first opportunity be here at WVU? I don't know. It's tough to say. Ren Baker does seem to be somebody that does value head coaching experience in his candidates, so that may knock Chester Frazier down the list a little bit, but he certainly has the backing of the players. You've seen Buck Harris and others come out on social media pulling for Chester Frazier to get the job. He's young, only 38 years old. And, of course, he was the associate head coach this past season, arrived in Morgantown with Darian DeVries, and has lived up to his billing, being a high-level assistant with great recruiting chops. Served as assistant at Kansas State, VT, and Illinois prior to coming to West Virginia. He appears primed for the next step in his career and knows what it's like to coach at West Virginia. Then we have VCU head coach Ryan Odom, another team that's playing in the tournament, which is kind of a constant theme you'll see from a lot of these names. Are probably we're going to have to wait, at least a few days because a lot of these guys are coaching in the tournament. But then again, Will Wade today proved that maybe announcements could come despite that. But Ryan Odom, 50 years old, North Carolina native, spent 20 years as an assistant at various stops like Furman, American, VT, and Charlotte before he was given his first head coaching job at Lenore Ryan. After one season, he went to Maryland, Baltimore County, where he helped lead the Retrievers into the NCAA tournament in 17 and 18 and became the first 16 seed to knock off a 1 seed when they beat Virginia. Okay, so he was the coach of UMBC. That's what University of Maryland, Baltimore County is. I never knew that's what it stood for. UMBC, the team that beat Virginia, so he was their coach, and then now ended up at VCU after going to Utah State. So Utah State, he was 44-25 in 2 seasons, and then went to VCU, taking the Rams to the NCAA tournament in both of his seasons, and holds a 52-30 record. He has won a total of 64% of his games over his head coaching career, so a great record there for Ryan Odom. Could do a lot worse than that. Definitely good track record. Making the tournament at multiple stops and getting wins in the tournament at multiple stops. And then we have High Point head coach Alan Huss, age 46. Started his career at the high school level and was an assistant at both New Mexico and Creighton for 9 seasons prior to getting an opportunity to lead his own Division I program at High Point. 2 seasons there, he's led the Panthers to 2 Big South regular season conference championships, 56-14 record, 27-5 conference record, led them to a 29-5 campaign this past season, and they are also in the NCAA tournament, played his college basketball at Creighton. On the list also, North Texas head coach Ross Hodge. And I think this one is another one to keep a close eye on because of the Ren Baker connection. We've talked about coaches Ren Baker's hired. We talked about Ben McCollum having the connection to Ren Baker, but certainly Ross Hodge does as well. We know Ren Baker came from North Texas, where he hired Grant McCaslin there, but also Hodge was an assistant on that staff. So definitely a connection to Ren Baker. Been the head coach for the Mean Green since 2023 and has amassed a 43-23 record during that time. Prior to that, he spent 6 seasons on the staff as the associate head coach and had also been an assistant at Arkansas State, Colorado State, and Southern Miss. He was the head coach at Paris Junior College and Midland College, where at those JUCO ranks there, he had a combined 146 wins and 24 losses in his 5 seasons and nearly won the championship there, the runner-up in 2010. Then we have Bryce Drew, the head coach of Grand Canyon currently. I believe he was on the list last year. Started his coaching career at his alma mater, Valpo, in 2005, where he started as an assistant before being elevated to associate head coach. Named head coach in 2011 and served in that role for 5 seasons, where he went 124-49. Great record. 2 trips to the NCAA tournament. Then he was hired at Vandy, spent 3 seasons there. Not the best record, 40-59. Trip to the NCAAs in his first year, though, at Vandy. After that, he was, of course, picked up by Grand Canyon, where he's been for 5 seasons, then 120-39 over 5 seasons with 4 trips to the NCAA tournament. So the only thing that gives me pause on this one is that it shows, one thing you can look at his coaching career and see, yes, he wins, but it looks like he wins a lot at the mid-major level. Won 124-49 the first time he was there, now 120-39 the second time he was there, but the last time he was here at the Power Conference level did have a losing record, although I'm sure Vanderbilt was a very tough job at that time, maybe even more so than it was now, but he did get him to the NCAA tournament his first year there, so did at least have a little bit of success, but that would give me a little bit of pause there on Bryce Drew, so not as high up on the list as some of these other names that we've talked about maybe. Bob Ritchie, the head coach of Furman, he was on the list last year as well, I do believe. Began his career as an assistant at Charleston Southern for 5 seasons and then moved on to Furman as an assistant, joining the staff under Jeff Jackson. He was retained by Nico Medved and spent 6 seasons as an assistant before he was elevated to interim head coach when Medved left for Drake. Following the season, they took the interim tag off and he was the 22nd head coach. And now during his 8 years, he has gone 181-79, a trip to the NCAA tournament in 22 and 23, and he advanced his team to the second round there. He has 1 conference championship under his belt as well. And then we have Josh Surtz, who was a very popular name in the search last season. He was the head coach there at Illinois State, who had a great run in the tournament last season, and then he took the job at St. Louis. So, you got to wonder, would he be willing to, job hop again after just taking the job at St. Louis? But he really does, have some great offensive sets. I like what Josh Surtz does as a coach. He's only 49 years old. As I mentioned, he was on the list last season. He was at Division II Lincoln Memorial as a head coach, and then, of course, Indiana State. I believe I said Illinois State, but it was Indiana State. Of course, you guys remember that from last year's tournament. But during his time at Lincoln Memorial, Surtz had a 337-69 record, and 10 of the 13 years was in the tournament, including a Final Four and a runner-up there at the D2 level. Then at Indiana State, he was there for 3 years, where he was 66-40, and his last season, this previous year, last year, 32-7 in his final season there. Now, only went 19-14 his first year at St. Louis, but you got to think it's probably not that easy to jump right in and win right away at St. Louis, and he did manage to get 19 wins at least. Was on West Virginia's radar last year. He's a native of New York, so you got to think he's going to be on that radar again. I think Ren Baker mentioned in his press conference today that, a lot of the guys that he was targeting last year, he may target again. So, Josh Surtz may be one of those guys. And then here's an interesting name that's probably familiar, Chris Mack. He's currently the College of Charleston head coach, longtime Xavier head coach, and has proven that he can get it done at this level, had success in the tournament, have success in a lot of wins. So, this is one that I hadn't really considered a ton, but I think would be, towards the top half of the list for me maybe. I do like Chris Mack, 55 years old. He's a coach that was on this list during the opening last season and has had success at the highest level at both Xavier and Louisville earlier in his career. Previously spent time as an assistant at Xavier Wake Forest before becoming the head coach when Sean Miller left for Arizona. 9 seasons at Xavier, he was 215-97, recorded 8 trips to the NCAA tournament, 4 Sweet 16s, which is awesome, and 1 Elite 8. He left for Louisville, where he spent 4 seasons with 1 trip to the tournament, but was then ousted there after violating school guidelines. After a 2-year hiatus, he was hired by the College of Charleston, and he just led them to a 24-9 record this past year. So there are some names that Rivals has. A lot of the other lists you'll see will have some of these similar ones, but I think out of these ones on this list, my personal favorites are probably Ben McCollum, if we still have a chance, if Iowa's not moving in on him. I'm not against Frazier. I think Calhoun wouldn't be terrible. He's not my favorite, but I do like Ryan Odom the more I read about him as well, and I think Chris Mack could be intriguing. But that's from Rivals list. 247 has a couple other different names. I'm not going to share theirs because it's behind a paywall. But what I can tell you about the 247 list, some names that weren't on the Rivals list that are on the 247, one of which is up near the top of my list, actually, to be honest with you, and that is, as soon as I can find him here, Richard Pitino. Rick Pitino, obviously a legend. He's just done incredible things every stop that he's been. So, the legacy's there. He's got the good coaching genes, and I would not be against bringing in Rick Pitino's son. Of course, Richard Pitino at New Mexico this season, where he's really rejuvenated his career, has them in the NCAA tournament. He was at Minnesota. So he does have some experience at the power conference level. I know it kind of teetered off towards the end of his run there at Minnesota and didn't really have a lot of success there, and that's why he ended up losing that job and then ended up elsewhere now being at New Mexico. But he did at one point, win Big Ten Coach of the Year while he was there at Minnesota, so he did have some success there, and I think that now he was probably just really young in the profession at that time. I feel like now he's probably really finding his groove, and it seems to be the case with the success he's had getting back into things at New Mexico, where he led them to the first winning conference record since 2018, so nearly a decade. So really, not a team that's traditionally successful, and he's having success there. So I really do like Richard Pitino, and I do kind of have him up a little bit higher on the list there, probably behind Ben McCollum, but still higher on my list, I think. Let's see if there's any other names on this list that we didn't go over on that list that we just went through on Rivals. Let's see. No, that's all the same. Here's another one that's not on the Rivals list that I think is intriguing. Bucky McMillan. So WVU apparently was interested in him a little bit last season, but felt like, he was just a little bit too young, a little bit too wet behind the ears, if you will. But he's known for his offensive ingenuity. They call it buckyball, and what that kind of entails is they're going to press a lot and they're going to shoot a lot of threes and move fast on offense, which sounds super exciting and I'm sure would be an offensive style and a playing style that Mountaineer Nation could rally behind. So, I think Bucky McMillan would be something to take a look at. He is at Samford. They're in the NIT, but he did lead them to a 22-10 record, even though they lost, one of their star players from last season. So, that's something to keep an eye on as well. Bucky McMillan from Samford is another name to watch. Let's see if there's any others that aren't on the rivals list. I think that all these others pretty much were. Yeah. So that's kind of the gist of the ones to keep an eye on. I know last year, Steve Forbes at Wake Forest was one that was being, thrown around, but I think in today's day and age, it's rare that you see power conference to power conference moves. Most of these guys that power conference teams are going to hire are going to come from the mid-major level, go get a really successful mid-major coach. So I kind of suspect that's the way West Virginia will go, unless they choose to go in-house. But just with going over some of those names we just went over, there are plenty of guys at the mid-major level that still have experience coaching a power conference team. Richard Pitino, Chris Mack, on down the list there. So I think there's really a lot of good candidates there. Like I said, if I'm ranking my favorites, McCollum still is my favorite. I know that their Iowa thing seems like it's maybe close to a done deal, but, it's not over till the fat lady sings, right? And Ren Baker has a relationship with him, so we could see what could happen there. I like him a lot. I'm intrigued by Bucky McMillan. He would kind of be up on the list a little bit for me. Like I said, I like Richard Pitino and Chris Mack. I guess, with what the names remaining, those are kind of my top, and I would maybe throw Chester Frazier in there as a wild card. But those are some names to keep an eye on throughout this search. And like I said, as we're able to cross some names off that list, as some of these other jobs get filled or as West Virginia rules them out as candidates, I'll come back and update you guys. Like I said, I'll try and do a live stream pretty much every day from here on out until this search is wrapped up, or at least every other day, as often as I can, as much as the news comes out, because this situation's always fluid, man, always fluid for sure. So, but that's pretty much what I had, guys. I'm going to catch up on some of your comments, and then we will call this a stream pretty much. That's all I want to do, was kind of get the initial candidate list out that's being thrown around, so you guys can know some of the names to watch for, and then we can kind of start narrowing it down on future streams as more information comes out. But shout out to Rivals 247 and others that have put those names out for sure. Let's see if I can find out where I was at in chat now. That's the challenge. I found my spot. Tommy Stoll, appreciate you tuning in and chiming in. Says he's never lost so much respect for a coach that had such high respect for so quickly as I did DeVries in the past day. The more I think about it, the more I'm glad he's gone. We'll be fine. Promise. Hey, 100%, man. I think that's exactly my sentiments as well, and I kind of touched on that a little bit at the beginning of the stream here when I was kind of getting it off my chest, how cowardly and how much of a bitch move it was, what he did there, kind of leaving like a thief in the middle of the night. And it wouldn't be so bad if he at least had met with the players, or, at the very least, sent them a damn text message, something, no phone call, no text message, nothing. And that's pretty bad. So I agree. I lost a lot of respect for him as well myself, Tommy. And, it is what it is. It is what it is. Just wipe our hands of it and move on to the next one. And I think we'll be able to go get a really good basketball coach. Ren Baker's proven that he can do some really good things. So we'll see what happens. And I think Ren Baker's just as pissed about it as we are, which reminds me, I did want to share this. I don't know if you guys saw this going around on social media, no context WVU sharing it, already tearing the Darian DeVries billboards and signage down in Morgantown, which definitely shows you that Ren Baker's perturbed by this as well, and just as pissed as we are by the way that it went down, because people were putting out the Trust to Climb stuff, the Neil Brown signage. It took a while for them to start moving that, and this is literally 24 hours later. So it's telling. I think it's telling. Matt Dick said, I'm going to be first place in ESPN. Hey, I hope you do, Matt. I hope you have good luck there, which reminds me, appreciate you saying that, Matt, because that I want to touch on that real quick while we got a few people in here live, and if people watching the playback, this is a good time to finally update this here one more time at least, because of course the tournament kicks off tomorrow. So I will drop the link in the chat here, and I'll try and remember to post it in the comments for you guys watching the playback as well. But I just dropped the link in the chat there. If you click that, you can join our Country Roads Webcast Bracket Challenge group on ESPN. Free of charge, doesn't cost you anything. And if you win, we're giving away 2 free months of Almost Heaven membership here to the channel. That's our top level of membership. I'll send you the money to be able to pay for that, and you get 2 free months of membership at no cost to you. All you got to do is play the bracket challenge and try and win it. And if you do win, you'll be rewarded with that. And like I said, if Steve and Brad or I was to come in first, it would be whoever was next, in the next place that wasn't us, that would then be get the winnings there, which is going to be 2 free months of Almost Heaven membership to the channel. Appreciate you for reminding me of that, Matt Dix. Thank you for that nice segue there. So the link's in the chat, but also if you're on the ESPN Tournament Challenge, you can just go to join a group, type in Country Roads Webcast, just like it is on our channel name, and you could join that way as well. If you do join, try and change your bracket name to whatever your name is here on YouTube. That way I'll kind of know who's who, and I'll know who wins when it comes down to it, and I can get you your winnings and get you your 2 free months of membership here to the channel, where you can get all kinds of bonus content. And we always appreciate our channel members, help keep this mic recording and keep that camera rolling. You get access to behind the scenes content, like watching us record our podcast episodes live, like channel members did last night, and they get to throw in some questions there at the end. And then of course throughout the football season, you get player grades, snap counts, injury reports, depth chart projections, film reviews, game rewatches, and that Almost Heaven level, you get 2 months of membership. If you win, that means you get to come to 2 Almost Heaven monthly hangouts where we just hang out, no dedicated topics, just shoot the breeze a little bit, and it's a lot of fun for sure. Eric Flower says all his picks have a tad Big 12 favorites. I understand that, because it seems like I always have that bias as well. I think it's just because I watch them more than the other teams, so I guess I know a little bit more about them, so I feel a bit more confident in picking them, so I get that for sure. Matt Dick says he's pushing for Jared Calhoun. That was assistant on our Final Four team and has WVU ties and won't leave after 1 year. Push for whoever y'all want, but that's his guy. I understand that, Matt, and I think that that's definitely something that's probably weighing heavily for a lot of people, as far as who they want to be their favorite, is they want to really get somebody that's not going to have this happen again, not leave after 1 year. And so definitely I could see why Calhoun would be a choice if that's something that you're really prioritizing. Let's see. Hey, what's going on, Shaq? Good to see you in here, bro. Good to see you in here. Another channel member, Shaq, sharing some of the custom emojis there in the chat as well. Appreciate you as always, man. Channel member Tim Green in here. What's going on? Let's go Mountaineers always, Tim, for sure. I seen some people throwing around Rick Pitino. Yeah, that's not going to happen. That's a pipe dream. Now, there's no shot at that one. But Richard Pitino, we could have a shot at, I think. I think we'd have a legit shot at him. But, yeah, Rick Pitino, man, he's a hell of a coach. I would love it, but that's, you got as good a chance of getting him as you do Jay Wright or Bill Self or, somebody like that. So it's not going to happen, but, hey, guy can dream. I appreciate the dreaming there in the chat, guys. Tim Green says, everyone please like, share, subscribe, and comment. Thank you so very much. I appreciate that, Tim. Appreciate that. And yes, if y'all would, cost you nothing. Just take a second to hit that thumbs up button if you're watching here on YouTube, whether you're watching live or on the playback. Helps us a ton. And if you're not watching live, you can throw your thoughts in the comments. That helps the algorithm. And if you want to, share it to any of your social media channels. That way, get more people can find the channel. They can stay up to date on this coaching search, and they can stay up to date on everything that happens around the Mountaineer football program leading up to the Rich Rod 2.0 era as well. Shaq, yes, we can indeed say that. I think, at least in some aspect we can. Because it looks like, obviously Will Wade to NC State, and that was one that was one of my favorites. If Ben McCollum goes to Iowa, then I definitely think you can say that a little bit. But, in the same token, I do think that there really are still some other good names left on the board as well. We just went over a few of them, and I think, I like 4 or 5 of those names, and I would be happy with, any one of the 5, that I named as my kind of top 5 there for sure. Yeah, I did hear that one come up, Matt. I think you must have made that comment probably before I was talking about it a little bit ago. But yeah, I think that's another intriguing name. Hodge there, the coach at North Texas, is one to keep an eye on because of the Ren Baker connection for sure. Let's see. Eric Flowers said VCU coach might be available tomorrow. It's a possibility, and I'm more intrigued by that the more I read about him. I didn't know a lot about him, but VCU's always produced some good coaches. Shaka Smart, and then, of course, they have him now, and I didn't realize that he was also the coach that had beaten Virginia, the only 16 seed to beat a 1 seed. That's intriguing as well. Good point here, Big Dan T. Appreciate you as always, Big Dan T. He says he likes Chester, but his first head coaching job can't be a Power 4. Remember what happened the last time we listened to the players? We ended up with Coach Stu. Love Coach Stu, but not a good head coach. And, that's, I think, tends to be the case a lot of times, I was a fan of Coach Stu. I think that he was a good head coach, and I think that really what was his downfall was Jeff Mullen. I think he needed good coordinators around him. I think he had a great coordinator in Jeff Castile. I think if he could have got Charlie Taft, that he was trying to get as offensive coordinator originally, it would have went a lot different for him. I think Jeff Mullen was Stu's downfall more than anything. But I do get where you're coming from, because a lot of times you can't let the players drive the ship, because, if that was the case, Tony Gibson would been the head coach at West Virginia already, because the players are pulling for him, multiple times. And, you can look at other cases where that has happened. But I think that usually, the guys that the players are pulling for, unfortunately, isn't the way that it ends up going. So I think that Chester Frazier is more unlikely than some of the other names that we listed. And especially because, as you said there, his first job, head coaching job, being a Power 4 job, it's also unlikely that it happens that way. Kind of similar to what we were talking about with Ben McCollum last year. His record and all of his accomplishments were super intriguing, but we didn't know if he could do it at this level. Now, having done it at Drake, we do feel like he can do it at this level. Maybe if Chester Frazier grabs a mid-major head coaching job, then down the line could be a more serious candidate. But who knows? They could surprise us. Let's see. Matt Dick says he's scared to death to take BYU over VCU. That is interesting, but I think if BYU does get past VCU, BYU can make a deep run in this tournament. They've been hot at the right time. They can score. They've got a lot of different guys that can score the basketball. I think they can score with anyone. I think BYU is a sleeper in the tourney if they can get by VCU. That's the only thing there. That's the only thing. Dime Drawer 4, good to see you. I hadn't seen you here in a while, man. Good to see you back in here, Dime Drawer. He says he'd hire Calhoun, a good coach, and he'll be loyal to the university and the state. I think that's what Matt said earlier as well, and I think that's one thing that a lot of people, especially from the fan base, are looking at in this hire, is they want someone that's going to be loyal for sure. Shaq says we need a good coach who can get great players. Got to be the priority in today's day and age. Got to be a priority. Let's see. Rich Pitino to Villanova. Oh, interesting. Interesting, Matt Dix. Thanks for sharing that. Let's see if I can find any info on that one. Good hire for Villanova, if so. Yeah, I do see it on here, a bunch of smoke about it. So he definitely seems to be a serious candidate there at Villanova. And like I said, that's something to keep an eye on, guys, as we went over that list earlier. All these other jobs that are open, Villanova, Virginia, Minnesota, all of these guys are kind of pulling from a similar candidate pool. So that's why I think Ren Baker's on this and on this quick. He did his press conference today. Now we probably won't hear from him again until we make the hire, but I'm expecting this hire to be pretty quick. I would be surprised if this went longer than a week and a half. I would be surprised. I really would, especially since it sounds like he may not even use the search firm because he may not need to. He just did this last year, so that would also expedite the process for sure. But we'll see what happens. I think that even though some of these other guys are, allegedly in talks with some of these other jobs, I think that, Ren Baker has shown that he's willing to, get in battle, so to speak, with some of these other programs because he feels like West Virginia has a lot to offer. So just because right now it looks like Ben McCollum to Iowa doesn't mean that's necessarily a done deal. If Ren Baker gets on the phone and makes some calls and has a sweet deal for him, he could change his mind. Because, personally, I think West Virginia is a better job than Iowa right now, and definitely West Virginia seems to have more NIL than Iowa. I know that was one thing that was we learned of recently was Iowa's NIL fund is nowhere near where it needs to be or should be probably. So, that's one thing. But of course, Iowa is home for Ben McCollum, as we talked earlier. But we'll see what happens. Like I said, as these names get crossed off the list, I'm going to try and go live and chat with you guys every day and update you as to how this coaching search is progressing. Eric says, I think most people are over Hugs. Yeah, as I mentioned in our podcast episode, which if you guys haven't checked it out, check it out. We just released it last night. You can watch the video here on YouTube, audio on any podcast platform. But I said that, Hugs is basically Vince McMahon's entrance music. No chance in hell. I don't think he's on the list. I don't think he's anywhere near the list. I think that me, all you guys in chat have as good a chance as he does. It's not happening. It's not happening. Whether you love him or hate him, it's just not happening. Just straight up and being honest. Hey, what's going on, JR? Good to see you, man. Good to see you, bro. Mountaineer Athletes channel member, always appreciate you, man. He said he disappeared in the middle of the night and never told his players anything. I live in Morgantown. I'm friends with one of the players, and he told me that he just disappeared. Didn't give a F. Yeah, I touched on that at the very beginning of the stream. I've got the same information that you have there, Mountaineer Athletes. And not only the players, but the assistant coaches as well. Didn't say anything to them. Not a hey, I'm leaving, a simple text, not a note by carrier pigeon, not a call, not a Zoom, nothing, not anything, man. Not, hey, kiss my butt, nothing. Just straight up like a thief in the middle of the night. And that's why I said it's a coward move, man. It's a coward move to do it the way that he did, for sure. That's funny, James. I like that. He said, I think we hire Neil Brown to coach basketball. He can't suck at both, right? He was a huge basketball fan, and he did have the players playing basketball at his little cookouts he'd do every summer. So that's funny, James. I like that. Edward Batten says Deshaun Butler. Hey, maybe down the road. He's had some assistant roles. I know he's assistant helping Joe Mazzulla there with the Celtics. I think that he's just got to get some more experience under his belt and get some head coaching experience under his belt. But he could wind up on the WVU staff again eventually, one day for sure. But I definitely think that I see a lot of people are looking for ties to West Virginia. I understand that, but Ren Baker's going to go get someone that's a good coach that's kind of proven. That's kind of his thing, is he wants somebody that's a little bit more proven. So. Hey, John Kelly, good to see you, man. Tim Green says, I have faith in our athletic director. I believe he will find a very good coach to the best of his ability. Let's go, Mountaineers. Indeed. John Kelly says he thinks the favorite is probably Calhoun. I mean, I've seen his name get thrown around a lot. I feel like he's the favorite among the fan base, at least. I don't know where Ren Baker stands on him. I certainly believe he's a candidate that's probably high up on the list in some way, but I would probably put Ben McCollum ahead of him personally. I think that the Iowa smoke is there, but I'm sure Ren Baker's been on the phone. But Calhoun's definitely high up on the list, John, for sure. You're not wrong about that. Dom Drawer 4 says Coach K out of retirement. Y'all are dreaming big in the chat. That's hilarious. Yeah, Missoula's another pipe dream. That's not going to happen either. He's already said in the past that he's not a big fan of recruiting. That's why he, left Fairmont State and went to the NBA, and he's probably going to stay at the professional level. That's kind of more his bag for sure. Darius Nichols, John Kelly says, deserves an interview. I think that's somebody that you probably can get an interview for. Steven mentioned that on the episode last night, and I hadn't even thought about that. But I think the only thing that gives you reservations about that is he just recently went through some legal trouble, which, I don't know if they'd want to dive into that. And also, he just took another job as the head coach of LaSalle, so I don't know if he would leave right away, because I think he literally just took that job. So I highly doubt that he would job hop right away, and maybe he needs a little bit more experience as well, to be honest. As Matt Dick says, just signed a brand new contract at LaSalle, so yeah, I don't think that one's going to happen either. But yeah, you never know, stranger things have happened, but I don't see it myself. But that's looks like we're all caught up in chat here for sure, so I appreciate everybody that tuned in here live. But that's pretty much what I want to touch on, was all the names there, that are kind of in the fold right now. Ben McCollum, Jared Calhoun, Richard Pitino, Ross Hodge, Josh Schertz, Bucky McMillan, on down the list, went through, double-digit names that we went through. If you guys popped in late, go back and catch the beginning of the stream. Also highlighted the other jobs that are open that West Virginia is kind of competing against. And, of course, we'll keep you up to date on any transfer news as well. Right now, we know Tucker DeVries is out to Indiana. Jonathan Powell is out with no destination. Currently, we've lost Trent McLean and Kelvin Odie, but we do still have Braden Hawthorne committed for the time being as far as the high school recruits that we had committed for the upcoming class. So we'll keep you guys up to date on the roster and this coaching search as it progresses. For now, Buck Harris still on the roster, since Amani Hansberry still on the roster, KJ Tenner still on the roster, Offrey Neve and Harris Elezevich would be the ones that return if they remain in the fold. So I'll keep you guys up to date on that, transfers, and of course, definitely there will be a lot of news about this coaching search. This thing's fluid. It could change hour by hour, minute by minute. So I'll be back with you guys again tomorrow whenever more news comes out about this. If more names are crossed off the list, if more names are added to the list, we'll come back and talk some more candidates, guys. But let you guys hop off here, watch the rest of these play-in games tonight, get your brackets filled out, and get ready for the big dance tomorrow. But I hope you guys have a great rest of your night, and hopefully we get some good news on the coaching search coming up in the near future. Got a lot of good candidate pool to pick from. Excited about a lot of those names, and we'll see how that list narrows down, and I'll report on it with you guys and chat with you guys about these candidates again, most likely tomorrow. So looking forward to that, and I'll talk to you guys again soon. Until next time, let's go Mountaineers.